Help out, if not, vote for the other person.
I just spoke at Dartmouth on health care at the medical school, or not, I guess I wasn't actually on the campus, but the people from the medical school were at the, I want to be clear, I'm not going nuts. I'm not sure whether it was a medical school or where the hell I spoke, but it was on the campus.
I want to thank Rich Fitzgerald, the county executive, Allegheny County executive, for being here. And I propose, and I'm going to digress slightly. We're in a situation. The president asked me to head up a cancer moonshot.
President Biden, just to be clear, would you or would you not rejoin the TPP? Yes or no?
I would not rejoin the TPP as it was initially put forward. In Guatemala, El Salvador, and to go in and say in Honduras and say, look, I know I'm called middle class, Joe. It's not meant as a compliment. Means I'm not sophisticated. Let it go. And there's an area where there's an important difference between this and there's an important difference between the candidates. I'm running. The country wasn't built by Wall Street bankers, CEOs, and hedge fund managers. This guy is moving to just foment hate. The price for whatever the drug costs are. Well, folks, eliminate one tax loophole out of $1.6 trillion worth, $1.4 trillion worth. Out of $1.4 billion. It's hard to even say it, it's so much. And by the way, it costs a lot of money. It cost about $740 billion over 10 years. Every single solitary person qualified in community college, increasing number of 6 to 9 million people. If you like your employer-based policy, you can keep that policy. If you agree with me, go to Joe 30330 and help me in this fight. If you want to be part of this campaign, pick up your phones. Pick up your phones. Now, send a text to the word United to the number 30330. 30330 or 303330 or BOO. Wait. You got it. It's out the back there. Now he's feeling the pressure of an economy that's teetering on a recession. To say that LGBTQ people have no civil rights. And immediately changed the law in the state of Delaware protecting transgender people. I took on Putin in terms of in terms of what was going on in Ukraine. Mm-hmm. My time friend, and she's a friend, she's been my friend in and out of public life, is it will cost 1/30th, costs a lot of money, almost $740 billion to do what I want to do over 10 years, but not $30 trillion, not 30 trillion. Among many qualified people, I'm the best qualified person for this job. And the reason is not just to help people who have or in fact are likely to get Alzheimer's. Because think of what's been adopted. Milton Friedman's notion that the only obligation. But that all changed with our Republican friends in the late 80s when they adopted Milton Friedman's notion that the only obligation. We find ourselves in a position where you're in a circumstance where we've adopted Milton Friedman's notion, the conservative economist. Now, if in fact you are in a position, what was the case, you worked for Jimmy. That's why we're so special. It took courage. It took resilience. They know who we are. We have to let them know who we are. We can do it, and it's going to take billions of dollars to do it, and we can afford to do it. We can't afford not to do it. Cut in half the number of uninsured of the Asian American Pacific Islander community. Cut in half. Don't worry, I'm so serious. Children, I love to hear them. But President Trump and the demagogues around the world. But if Donald Trump is reelected, so people are figuring out there's not a damn thing we can do that we set our mind to that we can't get done. The single most stressed I was asked to speak to the American Psychiatric Association, to go over to the University of London and speak to the World Psychiatric Association. It's interesting. I just spoke to the International Society of Psychiatric, the International Organization of Psychiatrists. I forget the formal name of it. over in London because this is not a Republican talking point. The Republicans are trying to kill Obamacare. Union workers, the UAW took incredible cuts in their future. Now we have $1.6 trillion worth of loopholes in the law. But I never ever thought that I'd see what I saw in Charlotte. You know, I came home from law school. Avoid having an excuse to walk by the dealer and say, no, I'm not going to be a mule. I got something to do. I got to go do boom, boom, boom. If we just were to reinstitute the Gaffes standards. And I think Secretary, excuse me, I wasn't the press going to say I'm downgrading by calling him Senator Booker. The fact is that the bills that the future president here, that the senator is talking about. And I was the one that suggested to the president, President Obama, I don't want to confuse presidents here. Look, we provide a Medicare option. That's exactly what Barack and I talked about in the beginning.
Couldn't get it through, though.
So I couldn't tell anybody but Barack. He's one of my closest friends. Invaded another country and annexed a significant portion of it called Crimea. Right. He's saying that it was my boss, it was his fault. I got assault weapons banned for 10 years. It had to be reauthorized because of hanging chads in Florida. The last president said, no, I'm not going to reauthorize it. We need to work again with Canada and Mexico as neighbors, not as adversaries. Saks or Benettons or Nike or whatever in the market in their places where the malls. Donald Trump does pose an existential threat to this. It's not hypothetical. We could put every one of them in school, cutting in half the cost of a four-year education. Why they do that? I ran what they call the moonshot, dealing with cancer, and subsequently after that set up the Biden Cancer Initiative. And here's the point: the conservative columnist, and they'd say to you, "Take my shotgun." I said, "I have three. I now have five because my son died, and I have three of his. I have 5 shotguns." Also, have a mechanism to control drug prices. You know, we're no longer using chemical-based things. All this thing we're dealing with, cancers and other issues related to the immune system, are bio-oriented. And by the way, the idea that NATO, the only people who entitled to rewards are stockholders. Ladies and gentlemen, he is deliberately and completely ignoring the legitimate authority of the Congress, and he's doing what he does with the complicity. Stop trying to keep your workers organized. By his failure to exercise any international leadership. It's about all these breakthroughs we have with dealing with the whole, immune system. I want you to know, if you look at PolitiFacts, we're no longer the wealthiest middle class in the world. It means investing much more in medical research to conquer devastating diseases like cancer and addiction and Alzheimer's. The opportunities are amazing. We are in a position to be able to lead the world like we've never been able to do it before. I mean, they're not bad folks, but guess what? I found that the secretary, we sat together in many meetings. There's things that are worth dealing with China tough on. What presidents say matter. We also know we need teachers. My wife is a full-time teacher, taught all during when we were vice president. High-quality options. The public option will be available in my plan. We'll make sure it's not quality. We'll make sure it's only affordable. Quality that's affordable. Not the end in themselves. It's a mischaracterization of my position across the board. Not those of us running for president.